Hello and a very warm welcome to the brand new edition of Policy Watch. I'm Kriti Mishra. In today's episode, we'll take a closer look at the priorities of the government for the telecom sector. India is currently the world's second largest telecommunications market with a subscriber base of 1.2 billion. Expansion of digital footprint and rollout of new telecom technologies like 5G, revival of BSNL and MTNL top the agenda of the government. 5G refers to the fifth generation cellular network technology that provides broadband access. It is expected that the trials of the 5G networks will start in around 100 days. Also, for revival of BSNL and MTNL, the Ministry of Finance has requested the Department of Telecommunications to examine the revival proposals. And to get deeper insights on the topic, I'm joined by Mr. Anupam Shrivastava, CMD, BSNL, and Mr. Sunil Gupta, Secretary, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. Mr. Shrivastava, let me commence the show with you. India traditionally was considered a late adopter of technologies. But 5G wave is engulfing India sooner than one can imagine. Of course, the auctions are also expected very soon. Tell us, what is the difference between 4G and 5G?
Well, a lot of difference. In fact, 4G and 5G, they are not the difference in generation alone. They are much more different. If you talk about 2G, it was connection through the voice technology. 3G was internet connection. 4G was the broadband connection. 5G is much more than that. 5G is not only a very high speed broadband, it also means that it is going to touch each and every aspect of human life. It is going to make a societal change in the countries which will adopt 5G. So it's a totally a different network, telecommunication network it's going to be. And as you said that we are a late adopter of the technology, but fortunately this time we are not late, we are in time. When we rolled out 3G services, we were almost like 6 years late. When we rolled out 4G services, we were 3 years late. But when we are rolling out 5G service or planning to roll out 5G services, I can tell you that we are together with the rest of the world here.
Right. You just pointed out that 5G would touch every aspect of human life. Mr. Gupta, tell us, how would the switch to 5G benefit Indian consumers?
See, 5G, if you look at, there are advantages which can be classified in three primary things. One is that it will give you ultra high speed of the broadband. In simple language, a consumer which is using his mobile can get the speed of the internet several times faster than what he is able to get today. The second thing is that which is called latency. Latency means that how much time it takes to communicate to the other. The latency is very low, and that is why people are talking about driverless car or similar type applications, which will be very, very common with this. And third is machine-to-machine communication. Now, machine-to-machine communication is going to revolutionize the complete behavior, how people are going to use different services. You can sit in your office, you can switch on your AC, sitting in the office, you can plan the things, what is going to happen at your home, and anything what you can imagine can happen. So that's the dream what we are looking at in 5G.
So it's a dream, it's a vision that we are chasing.
Yeah.
But also, Mr. Shrivastava, tell us, how will Indian companies support the evolution from 4G to 5G and ensure seamless transition?
Well, Indian companies are trying to adopt the technology. They are investing, but a lot has changed in past few years. You must have noticed that earlier there were about 14 companies, now there are 4, 3 private and 1 PSU. So they are all trying with different mechanism to adopt to the 5G technologies. As far as BSNL is concerned, we have had an MOU with various companies trying to learn about the technology. But let me tell you, we have to be a little careful here, because the way the world is taking up 5G technology, we have to be a little different. 5G in respect of India has to be a little different. See, world, when they talk about 5G, in the same breath, they talk about connected cars and they talk about various machine-to-machine communication. But when we talk about 5G, we have to think about different use cases. Like, for example, how 5G can make the lives of our agriculture society much better, or how it can support the health industry, or how it can decongest the traffic that we see in the city areas. So these are the areas where we have to focus on. We don't have to blindly follow what world is doing in regards to 5G. We should have our own use cases. for which I think all these telecommunication companies are working, whether they are private or whether they are business. BSNL especially is talking to various organizations like Ericsson, Nokia, Cisco, and we are discussing about the transfer of technology, and we are also talking about use cases fit enough for our country.
Right. So since we're talking about the telecom companies, so many telecom bodies have expressed reservation over the proposed base price of 5G network. And they have also cited financial health amid intense competition. What is the way ahead?
I would say in the short that way ahead is very positive. The things what is being talked about of financial health and all these things, we had to understand that 5G is a technology which will be giving a lot of new business opportunities to you. Look at today, our telecom is primarily a consumer centric organizations which are working, but lot of things are lying on the revolution in the infrastructure development, revolution in uses in the corporates, revolution in various sectors and including industrial revolutions. Now, if you talk about the 5G, a very major role would be played in industrial revolutions. It will contribute a lot for the smart city developments. So, business models are going to be very, very different than what business model we are looking at today. And therefore, the view on the price has to be taken in a holistic manner and not on a very conservative manner. People are talking about the Korean model, that Korea has auctioned the price which was very low as compared to the base price given. But we had to compare what are the terms and conditions. The licensing framework and the spectrum price what we have recommended is for 20 years, whereas Korea is for 10 years. So, you must understand that there is a difference. Similarly, there are other terms and conditions. There are other markets which are going for the auction. Very recently, Germany has concluded the auction for the 5G. We had to look at that what are the prices which are being discovered in different leading world economies. Then also we had to look at that what are the number of people who are going to use your services. So, there are a lot of factors, and just by few small issues, one cannot say that prices recommended are not appropriate or high.
So, we have to look at it at a holistic manner.
Right.
Also, Mr. Shrivastava, you would like to add on this, the proposed base price and the apprehensions of the companies?
Well, maybe my response would be from the operator side,
Right.
So, operators always wish that the cost of the spectrum should be as less as possible, whereas the policymakers, they come up with a proposal where the cost is at a certain level. But I would believe that 5G, for the 5G rollout, we have to be little easy on the price. I mean, this is what my personal opinion or opinion from the side of the telecom fraternity or the telecom operator. We have to be little easy on the price. Why? Because recently in 4G auction, the 4G spectrum cost was very high, and the companies which have shelled out lots of money, they found it little difficult to roll out the network. With the result, 4G couldn't be rolled out as fast as we would like it to be, except for the one company which has invested hugely on the 4G spectrum, but otherwise other companies couldn't roll out the 4G network that fast. So, we have to have a balance of both. We have to have a situation where sufficient money in terms of the spectrum auction comes to the government, but we should also have a situation where sufficient money is left with the telecom companies so that they can roll out the network as fast as possible, which is going to be good for the country.
So, we have to maintain the balance, and of course, there are several factors at play.
Absolutely.
Also, Mr. Gupta, you mentioned about South Korea. South Korea became the first country in the world to roll out 5G network. Any specific lesson that India can pick up from South Korea for rollout of 5G network?
The only thing what I like to say, and also agree very much with Mr. Shrivastava, that we had to be very mindful about the use cases which are good and applicable to our country, and not blindly follow the use cases which are being followed in different country. 5G is a technological upgradation which gives us a lot of flexibility as to what type of services we can provide. But it never means that all the use cases which are applicable to a particular country will also be equally applicable to our country. Our country is a vast country, very different type of country, and composition and the use habits are very different. and therefore we had to be mindful about what are the right applications which has to be adopted, and that would be the key for success of implementation of 5G.
So our conditions are very diverse, of course, that's what you're saying.
Very diverse.
Than other countries in the world.
Than other countries. I personally feel that to start with, the fixed mobile access would be a very important application which will be required. We also had to be mindful that a lot of fiberization has to be done, because if we had to provide a very good quality of service to the consumers, we had to have a proper backhaul. So backhaul arrangements for spectrum has to be allocated for the backhaul purpose as well. And too many coordination is required. There is a vendor who will be making the devices, there will be people who will be developing applications, there will be system integrators which will be doing the system integrations, because ultimately consumer is interested in the output and not who is doing what. And people are interested in turnkey projects, that this is what I want and I should get it, irrespective whether it is to be done by the telecom service provider or by anybody else. So a lot of coordination is also required, and we have to develop and inculcate that sort of understanding among the industry partners, so that we can provide what consumers want.
So coordination is required between different players. Also, Mr. Shrivastava, it is expected that 5G rollout will have a cumulative economic impact on India that would add up to $1 trillion by the year 2035. How would 5G power our future?
See, as I said, that 5G is an inflection point. You see, 5G is not only enhanced speed, it is enhanced speed, all right, but at the same time 5G also is an inflection point. The way we do our business, the way we do our medical activities, the way we do our agriculture activities, the way we live in this society, everything is going to be connected with 5G some way or the other. So think about a situation when in our country, for example, we are a country where we are trying to develop a good medical facility. But I was reading somewhere that we are still short of about 1.5 million doctors. And therefore, we need to reach to the rural areas with the 5G and IoT technology. We can reach to the rural areas with the expert specialized doctors sitting in the cities. They can reach to the rural areas. Think about a situation where in agriculture, we would like to know about the yield, we would like to know about the livestock, we would like to know about when the things are to be sowed. All these things can be done through 5G. For example, rivers, we need to clean our rivers. We would like to know where the contamination is coming in the rivers. Those can be done through 5G, IoT, drones. Everything is going to be run with the heart of 5G inside it. So this is how it is going to change the society, our country. And 5G is really, I mean, we can talk about 5G 10 years later, and then we will say that this is how it has benefited to the country.
So the potential is massive. And lastly,
absolutely.
Sir, yes, sir. And lastly, we're talking about 5G and its rollout, but what are the challenges in deployment of 5G in India, and how do we overcome those challenges?
See, if you look at the challenges at present, to me it appears to that first and foremost is how we are going to provide a very strong backhaul. If we look at today, about 20 to 22% of our BTSs are powered by the optical fiber backhaul. We had to reach in the nook and corner of our country so that we can provide optical fiber to important places where backhaul can be made. For that purpose, we had to identify what would be the spectrum for giving the very robust backhaul provisioning. Third, right of way policies will be very important. As to lay the optical fiber, the permission has to be given to the telecom service provider very quickly and at the appropriate rate, not charging too high. So that's the second thing. Thirdly, it has to be in the time bound manner. We had to bring a lot of investment into the sector, which could be done either by the telecom service provider directly, or there may be some coordination and cooperation in terms of infrastructure providers who can create such infrastructure for the telecom service provider, and they can share those sort of infrastructure. Active infrastructure sharing would be one of the important things to move forward. So these are certain areas. I won't say they are the challenges, but they are the important areas where we have to concentrate to ensure that implementation becomes smooth and successful.
So
absolutely,
implementation is
Kriti,
important.
I
Yes,
think
sir.
to what my colleague
Go ahead,
is
sir.
telling.
Go ahead.
that, and I always tell that when it was 2G and 3G, it was only competition, competition and competition. All the operators were competing with each other for their space. When it came to 4G, it was little different. The operators started cooperating also. He's talking about active sharing, sharing of the tower, sharing of the BTSs. This all has to be done. To me, 5G means co-opetition, which is cooperation and competition put together. When it comes to compete, yes, the telecom operator should compete, but when it comes to cooperate and collaborate, they have to collaborate, they have to ensure that their resources are shared amongst each other. And for that, I believe that TRAI is playing and will have to also further play a role where they have to say that, look here, the operators, if you have a common infrastructure, you need to share, because after all, it is our country's infrastructure, our country's resources.
So co-optation is the key.
Absolutely.
As 5G is expected to transform the telecom sector. Now let's shift focus to BSNL. Mr. Shrivastava, the government has asserted that in order to maintain sober equilibrium, the private sector must exist, and in the national interest, it is important that they remain healthy. What are the revival plans for the BSNL?
Well, let me begin that BSNL, earlier it was the only operator and it used to be #1 operator. It was monopolistic. When it faced the competition, it started, feeling the heat of the competition, and its profit was going down. In year 13-14, BSNL's operating profit, or EBITDA as we say it, had come down to negative territory.
Yes.
Because of the efforts of the government then, the revival happened. So revival of BSNL first time happened in 2014, where BSNL came back to operating profit, came back to EBITDA positive, and for consecutively 3 years, BSNL was in operating profit territory, and that means it was able to meet all its expenditure, which included the salary expenses also, which is whopping 14,000 crores of rupees annually. So that was happening. But then the new disruption happened in 2016, especially September 2016, when a new entrant rolled out their service with massive investment in 4G, and where the competition became really acute. And as I have said, that number of operators shrunk from 14 to 4. That was the impact of the competition. BSNL faced lots of problem again, because first and foremost, it didn't have the 4G spectrum. So imagine a situation where BSNL had to compete without 4G spectrum with all those operators who had 4G spectrum. It's like, going to the race where you have to compete with Mercedes and BMWs, whilst you have only Marutis and Nanos and Ambassadors. So that was the difference BSNL had to face. And then again, the situation became bad, and we started going back to EBITDA negative, and then the revenue also started declining, with our expenditure remaining at the same level. And now the revival of BSNL has again become a priority, which is now supported by the current minister and current government. They are fully behind now revival of PSUs. And now with that in mind, BSNL together with the ministry is in a position to send a proposal to the government of India. We have almost finalized, where we are basically talking about 3 things. One is reducing the expenditure, which mainly comes from the employee expenditure. And as I have said, that it is standing at the level of 14,000 crores of rupees, which is eating almost like 60 to 65% of our top line. Then secondly, allotment of 4G spectrum is absolutely essential for BSNL to transit from 2G, 3G to a 4G player. And thirdly, BSNL is sitting on a huge amount of resources, whether it is land and building, or whether it is optical fiber, or whether it is towers, or whatever. So we have just now, we calculated that our resources are standing at 200,000 crores of rupees, 2 lakh crores of rupees. So third proposal is to monetize those resources, like our tower resources, our optical fiber resources, our landline resources, so that whenever there is a need for investment, those investment can actually come from the monetization of our own resources. So these are the 3 basic points on which the revival package is now based on, and which is going to be approved very soon. And after that, again BSNL is going to come back to a positive territory.
So you mentioned about the investment plan. Now, how do you plan this investment with minimal investment on 4G for the transition to 5G?
Absolutely, I think this you have, Kriti, you have just conveyed the the best part of the revival plan. That 4G has already happened. You see, 4G has happened for about 2-3 years. We have already lagged behind in 4G, so now we have to catch up. So we have to have minimal investment in 4G, which is required from transiting from 3G, 2G, 3G network to 5G network. It is not possible to transit from 2G, 3G straightway to 5G network.
Right.
So there has to be some step of 4G as well. So we don't want to invest too much on 4G, just enough so that our network becomes 4G compliant. We are able to roll out the broadband services. Then we straightway come to 5G as we were thinking about. And my colleague Mr. Gupta has mentioned that fiberization, he said that fiberization is key to success of 5G. And who has got the maximum fiber assets in our country? It is BSNL. Right. We are already standing at 800,000 kilometers of fiber in our command. And the company which can fiberize the tower first is BSNL. So if we can go to the 5G, taking a small step of 4G, I think we will be better placed than all other operators in the industry at this point of time.
So monetization is important.
Absolutely.
So let me get Mr. Gupta in the debate. Sir, how can BSNL infuse professionalism and become competitive in the market?
See, as far as professionalism is concerned, I don't think there is any doubt that BSNL is already a professional company. There is a different issue, as Mr. Shrivastava has rightly pointed out, because of certain reasons they couldn't get the 4G spectrum, and because of that technology evolution has happened and people have liked to get a lot of data utilization. For that they wanted a very high speed, and somehow BSNL would have suffered on that particular point of view. But with the proper policy formulation, with the proper support and a good planning, I have no doubt that BSNL can be revived very easily, and there are very positive indications, as Mr. Shrivastava has pointed out. They have got a lot of fiber, they have got a lot of connections which are going to the houses of things, and first and foremost thing is people have confidence in their billing, in their being very close to the consumer's requirement, and that's the area where there is a lot of scope for BSNL to catch up and reach to these things. Consumers are very much happy with the services being provided, and because of that, if you see that people have started giving 4G and very good plans, still people have continued with BSNL. There are states, and particularly we know because we are sending our team for monitoring and all these things, especially southern states, where BSNL still happens to be one of the preferred telecom service provider. So it's not that BSNL is lagging behind too much. It's only small tweaking is required, and I'm quite sure that with that BSNL would be able to perform much better.
And there's huge scope of improvement as well.
A lot of scope of improvement is there, and they have got all competence to give tough competition to the other private
players. Also, there's another important point, Mr. Shrivastava, and that is of pension and salary. How do you plan to address the issues of pension and ensure timely salary to the employees?
Well, pension is not an issue, in fact. The salary is an issue. You see, as I said, that salary eats away almost 60 to 65% of our revenue. And this salary has to be paid to the employees and the officers who were Government of India employees. When it was corporatized in year 2000, the Government of India officers and employees were transferred to BSNL en bloc. And then we were forced to, take care of them, forced to give them the same salary, same basic, same DA as mandated by the government rules and regulation, and therefore we could cut the cost as far as salary is concerned. So therefore, in this revival plan, reduction in salary is one of the main focus area, where by offering the VRS to a willing employee, a better VRS package wherein the employee also benefits, officers also benefits, we intend to reduce our salary cost. And once this salary cost reduced, because I think I have mentioned somewhere that if our salary cost is as big as the salary cost of the private operator, we are a dividend paying company even now, in spite of the fact that we are not offering 4G services. We are only competing with 3G service. As my colleague also mentions that he goes and tests all our operator, and we find that our services are still preferred in many of the areas. When they do the drive test, our network still performs better than other operators, and there are less number of call drops as far as BSNL is concerned, and that is done by our independent agency like TRAI. So network is good, employees level is good, officers professionalism is good. Only thing which is required is the salary expenditure which goes away from our company should be restricted, should be rationalized.
Right. So on that positive note, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. So the government has fast-tracked reforms in the telecom sector. That's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.